Hi, Kevin. Congratulations, man. All right. Wherever you're comfortable. Oh, we're one short. I'll stand. I'll stand. I'll stand. Somebody will be speaking. I prefer to play the role. I think we'll start with you with the opening prayer.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Wanda Johnson. I'm the mother of Oscar Grant, who was killed January 1st, 2019. And we are here today for AB392. Let us look to the Lord in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, the great God of this universe, God, we thank you. We thank you for putting it on the hearts of your people on today, oh God, for AB 392. God, we thank you that all men are created equal in your eyesight. God, there is no one, oh God, different from another, but you created all men. And because you created all men, you have commanded us to love one another. And so, God, we thank you for the governor of this great state. We ask that you would continue to fill him with wisdom and knowledge, oh God. We thank you for Dr. Weber. God, we thank you for her pushing forward the bill, oh God. God, we thank you for giving them the wisdom to know that there was something systemically wrong. And God, we thank you for them pushing forward to make it right. And so, God, we thank you, oh God, in the name of Jesus. And God, we ask that you would bless everyone in this place under the sound of my voice. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen and thank you. Amen.
Good morning. One more time. Good morning. This is a great day, so we should all be celebrating and very happy. It's not a sad occasion. It is a wonderful occasion, and I'm pleased to be here with you today. They always say if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And look where we are, together. And we've gone a long way in California and in this nation. AB 392 is a necessary step to affirming the sanctity of human life and protecting human rights. Far too many days have gone by with far too many deaths because of the inaction of those who have the power to enact change. When we look around us today, what we see here is a whole lot of people and a lot of communities with power ready for change. And I am so grateful to them for that. It's interesting, some years ago, when we began this whole process of looking at all of the shootings in the state of California, but also across the nation. My son, who's here today, said to me, "Mom, these young people are marching and marching, and nothing's happening." He said, "But you and Miss Atkins got juice. Y'all can do something." And that touched me to the heart and to the bone. And as a result of that, AB 392 was done, the racial profiling bill, and then the gang bill. And we began to move forward because we realized that we had the responsibility to do something. That was not enough for young people just to be marching in the streets and taking their hearts and their tears away, and for families to be caught in a circle of pain and us to do nothing. And so we began that process. So when I was asked to do this bill, another one, I thought hard and long about it because I know that the journey is long and it's hard and it's difficult. And this one basically changes the culture of policing in California. And so I thought hard and long about it. Most of you know I went to my church and said, pray for me, to see if I have the courage and the strength and the stamina to stand for as long as necessary. And they did. And some of them came up and said afterwards, I'm not just praying that you will have the courage, but I'm praying that you will do it, because it is necessary in California. For 400 years, people of color have often had a different kind of justice than others in this nation. And after 400 years of demonstrating our commitment and our humanity to this nation, we deserve fairness and justice. Most of you know this has been a hard and a long journey. And we never wavered in our commitment. But the good thing is that we have the force of California with us. Not only in the families that we'll talk about and hear from, but I was fortunate to have with me a speaker, Anthony Rendon, who supported this concept and bill. I was actually equally more fortunate and blessed to have a friend who I thought was my friend until she talked me into running for the Assembly, but who said there was something that I needed to do. And when this bill came out of the Senate with 85% of the vote, she whispered in my ear, "This is why you are here." I want to thank my friend Tony Atkins, Senate Pro Tem. I want to thank all the joint authors, those who came on early in the game, the co-authors who stood with me and the families, that I didn't have to convince that this was a good thing to do. And I also want to thank my joint author, Assemblymember Kevin McCarty, who also stood with me from the very beginning. With a bill like this, it takes a lot of high-profile people to bring it about. And we were fortunate to have Dolores Huerta, who's here with us today. Thank you so much. We're fortunate to have Matt Barnes, who walked the halls of the House and met with members. Kendrick Sampson was with us from the beginning. Thank you. And Nick Cannon was also with us. We had folks who came to Sacramento to make a difference and who met with members in their offices. So I want to thank them. But also I thank the coalition of hundreds of social justice, religious, and labor and community-based organizations. We had over 200 organizations supporting this bill, working this bill, meeting with members, and making sure that people understood the importance of what we were doing. I also want to thank the co-sponsors of the bill, who are a powerful force to be reckoned with in California. And we knew that we'd have to have a powerful force because the law enforcement organization is a powerful organization and should be in the state of California. And so if we're going to change what they do, we have to basically have an equal force to basically deal with the issues that we think are important. So I want to thank the California Families United for Justice. The STOP Coalition is here. The Communities United for Restorative Youth Justice. The Youth Justice Coalition. The ACLU of California. The Anti-Police Terror Project. The Alliance for Boys and Men of Color, Policy Link, Justice Teams Network, PICO California, and United Domestic Workers of California and ASME Local 3930. I truly want to uplift those families who were advocates with us for the tragedies that they've lost and how they endured during this movement. I've never met individuals more passionate and more concerned than the families who've lost individuals in this whole process. It has been an eye-opener for me because I understood somewhat their pain, but I never knew how deep and how permanent that pain was because they lacked justice. And so I have been truly grateful that when we have called, they have come. And they've shared their pain, they've shared their experiences, but most importantly, they have remained focused and committed to this work. And I am personally very, very grateful to them. I'm grateful for them because they trusted me. They gave me what was most important in their life, the future of their children, to look after. And I took that with great seriousness. And I want them to know that I am most appreciative to them for trusting me with this bill, believing that I could get it done, and knowing that the decisions that I'd have to make along the way to make minor changes and adjustments, that I would never betray them, I would never misuse them, and we would get something done that was significant. And I want to thank those families for believing in me, for getting it done. I want to thank my family that's here with me today, my daughter and my son, my daughter who's become an elected official against my will, but she's a great city councilwoman in La Mesa, and my son who's a strong advocate and a person who pushes all of us to a higher level of who we are. They're here with me in the front row. But I'm also grateful to my granddaughter, who is a sophomore at Sac State, who sometimes believes in me, follows me everywhere, but understands the work that we do is very important. I also have with me my heart and my throb, Jalil and Kadir. One will be the new president of the United States, and the other one will be his attorney general. And I've introduced them before as that. They're the Weber, I call them the Weber boys, but their name is Gakunga, and they are my rugrats, who basically we do everything for to make a difference. I often say to them, my father told me certain things about what happens to young black men in America. They should not know that, only in an historical sense, but it should not be a part of their lives. It should not influence their lives, and it should not make them different, because they deserve justice and fairness and equality. And I want to thank them for keeping me and reminding me of the importance of what I do. Lastly, I Governor. Governor Newsom has made a tremendous impact on the state of California in a short period of time. I told him just a few moments ago that if he were not governor, and we were a year earlier, I would still be arguing with the current governor to sign this bill. That we argued for over 3 weeks with AB392 and threatened a hunger strike just to get a bill signed that would basically allow us to collect data concerning racial profiling. I could only imagine the battle I would be having right now with the governor's office about changing the culture of policing in California. It would be significant. And so I am grateful that my friend Tony Atkins told me to hold the bill, and that as a result of that, it has had a profound impact of us working this bill. And I thank the governor for his staff, for them working with us, believing in us, and helping us get this bill across the line. And I am so grateful to you for that. When others ask for reform in the future, you will look back and say, can it happen? Will it happen? And I hope you look at 392 and say that it can. We were told by so many that it could not happen. And we had felt that we were at the brink of failure at one point in this whole process. I felt the weight of the families. It's been a difficult journey because they entrusted me with trying to bring change. But my greatest fear is that if we had failed, those who want to make change will never work to do it again. And that was really the greatest pressure that I felt, that my colleagues in the Assembly and the Senate need to know that it is possible, it is necessary, and that we must do the work. And I want to thank everyone for making that possible. This bill broke records in terms of coming out of the House. 85% in the Assembly, 85% in the Senate. We had prayed for 51. And we were so grateful to so many members who finally saw what we were talking about. And lastly, I'm grateful to law enforcement, who finally came around and went neutral on the bill. They made it difficult, but I've always believed that there is no testimony without a test. That if you believe in what you believe in, someone will challenge you. And your strength lies in what you believe in. And I'm grateful actually to them, because I think the battle made me stronger, made us all more determined, and basically says to us that if we believe and we work hard, it will happen. Today we make policy, makes a life safer and for the future of California. The bill will basically make everyone in California safer. It will not bring back those that we've lost, but we hope and pray that it will prevent those from being lost. My father was had a fifth grade education and basically was semi-literate, but he worked every day of his life to make a difference for his children. And one thing he knew for sure, that tomorrow would be better for his children. That after he endured the kind of racism that existed in the South, he lived every day knowing that he was working to make life better for his children. My greatest fear is that even with all the education I have, that will not happen for my children and for my grandchildren. And with that in mind, I am motivated every day to make sure that I can at least do what a man with a 5th grade education did and a daughter who has multiple degrees can do. That we must make it better tomorrow for our children. So once again, thank you so very much for your support. Thank you for coming. We have been truly blessed by this occasion, and this will make a difference not only in California, but we know it will make a difference around the world. Thank you so much.
Anin, Hallie McKelvey and Dishnikaz, Nimki Dodam, Bawating and Dunjaba. Allow me to introduce myself. I'm an Anishinaabe Kwe out of the Great Lakes region. I introduce myself as Hallie McKelvey. I am Thunder Clan, and I come from the place of the Rapids. I'm here today to represent my mother, Myra Lisa Michael Lizio. On April 26, 2018, my mother found herself in a mental health crisis. On that date, Butte County Sheriff's Office came to serve and protect, but they failed to do that. On April 26, 2018, my family and myself and my mother and her legacy became part of a club that nobody wants a membership to. My mother was a woman of her faith. She was cemented in her faith of Jehovah. She was dedicated to our family, her friends, her animals, and most importantly, her community. She was a woman who never failed to see the good in life. My mother, Myra, was a member of the United Domestic Workers. She took care of many members of her own community while suffering alongside with her own disability. You see, my mother suffered from schizophrenia. Ultimately, the vulnerability of her own mental illness led to her untimely killing. See, half of all of individuals killed by law enforcement are dealing with one form of disability or another. Had those officers had AB392, had the community been more in tune, what could have happened? We may never know. But my hope going forward from today and for the citizens of California and the state of California, that accountability will be served, that communities can start to heal, that transparency will come through, and that everybody, the citizens of the states, members of their communities, and our lawmakers, everyone who had come together for the collective action to change the systems, to hold accountability, and to show proof in the pudding that when you believe in something and you have that passion and you have the attention of your lawmakers, things can come together. So to the citizens of California, Assemblywoman Shirley Weber, the rest of the California lawmakers, and Governor Newsom, Chi Miigwech, that's Ojibwe for a big thank you for all of the work you've done, because my mother's life and the life of many others who was killed before her and who were killed after her will not be in vain. Our loved ones are going to go forward and have the impact that we all desire. Thank you.
Just over 6 months ago, my younger brother was killed by 6 Vallejo police officers who fired 55 rounds at him in just 3.5 seconds while he was sitting in a car asleep outside a Taco Bell drive-thru. His name, Willie McCoy, is now part of an ever-growing list of black and brown men unjustly and needlessly killed by police officers in America. The people of California are fed up. We are fed up with the harassment and violence perpetrated on our communities by police officers who are supposed to protect and serve us. But we are not alone. Countless other communities throughout our country are frustrated, angry, and hurt by the current status of policing, especially policing in the black and brown communities. All over the country, communities are forced to grapple with the question of how can we change the prospects young men and women of color face in this country when policing is deeply rooted in race and racism, and when the justice system is so deeply rooted in injustice. When will it end? One place to start is by requiring that officers find a peaceful resolution to situations whenever they can, to force officers to think more about these situations before they pull the trigger. The first step is changing the law to make sure officers only use deadly force when it's absolutely necessary. Today, California is doing just that and clearing the path for other states to do the same. Also known as Willie Bowe, Willie was a caring young man with an old soul. After losing both his parents by the age of 12, Willie's life was anything but easy. He was troubled, as a lot of kids in his circumstances might be. But by the time he turned 18, he had become a shining example of how to rise above adversity. Willie was resilient and selfless. In a world where everyone is looking to take and get something for themselves, Willie always gave, especially to the young people in his life, which is why his death hurt so much. When my family and I saw a bystander's cell phone video and the police officer's body camera footage, we saw the execution of someone who had his whole life ahead of him. The officer's risky tactics escalated the situation. They created the circumstances they then used to claim they feared for their lives. Obviously, any person can agree that being a police officer is a difficult job. I acknowledge that. My oldest son was briefly a police officer himself. But the way the laws are written, officers are currently not obligated to do what is in the best interest of the community to save a life instead of taking one. Every year, California police shoot and kill more people than in any other state. In the community of Vallejo, a city with a population of about 120,000, it is clear that there is an epidemic of police brutality. An analysis of California Department of Justice data found that between 2009 and 2014, 1 in 10 Vallejo Police Department officers had killed someone. A recent study also found that Vallejo police have the highest rate of police shootings in Northern California. Since Willie's death, Vallejo police officers have waged an all-out intimidation campaign against our family. They want to silence us, and they know they can get away with it just as they are likely to get away with Willie's killing. The reality is, officers rarely face consequences, and families like mine are left to wonder, who is policing the police? Willie was about a month shy of his 21st birthday when he was killed. It saddens me to know that none of us will ever get to see what kind of man Willie would have been at 30, 40, or 50 years old. We do, however, have this opportunity to see what kind of state California can become. The California legislature has passed this historic bill that will require police officers avoid using deadly force when it isn't necessary to protect themselves or others. AB392, the California Act to Save Lives, can transform California from a state that had one of the deadliest use of force laws in the country to a state with one of the strongest and most protective laws. California will also be the only state in the country to combine this necessary requirement with a requirement that courts take into consideration police officers' actions leading up to a shooting in determining whether the shooting is legally justified. AB 392 will change the law and bring us closer to holding officers accountable for breaking it. Willie's case is a textbook example of where this new law can make a difference. It offers a ray of solace for my family and hope that it will spare other families from bearing this burden with us. Hopefully not just in California, but across the country. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Kevin McCarty, the representative right here in our capital city. Proud to be here today with all of you on this historic day, and more proud to be a joint author of this measure. As we finalize AB 392, the California Act to Save Lives, we can think that once again, California leads the nation with progressive policies. This is a historic bill setting our use of force standards that were clearly very outdated. When the ACLU and others came and told Dr. Weber and I 18 months ago that our law was over 100 years old, I said, rewind that. Go back there. And we talked about this bill, and Dr. Weber and I, we weren't sure about this. Some people said we were crazy introducing this bill. The stakes are too, not just that we know the stakes are high, but the obstacles are too high to push this across. But we knew that this was a reasonable proposal to restore and build public trust in our communities across California. And it wasn't crazy. Just as Willie McCoy's family said, people see it now with their own two eyes. You know, nearly 30 years ago, we saw the footage of Rodney King, and that was a rare sight to see video footage. But now, too often, we see it with our own two eyes. We see it here in the streets of Sacramento with Mr. Mann, with Mr. McIntyre, with Stephon Clark. We see it. We know that there is a better way. We know that there is a better way. And fortunately, as Dr. Weber said, law enforcement realized there is a better way as well. So I'm certainly pleased by our partnership that we were able to get across the finish line. And as Dr. Weber said, you know, we can go fast. At the very beginning, there was just two of us. We want to go far, we want to go with others. So I want to, again, recognize all of our senators and assembly members who stepped up and put their name on that bill. I think 6 or 7 are in the front right here. Mr. Medina Carrillo, Senator Radford, Senator Mitchell, Reggie Jones-Sawyer, Senator Skinner, Assemblymember Holden, Comlager Dove, Gonzalez Fletcher. Thank you all for stepping up and showing leadership. And then it's true, we wouldn't have got this measure to the final stages without the extraordinary leadership of our Senate President Pro Tem, our great Assembly Speaker, and finally, our Governor of the great state of California. Because they said, this bill will not fail. This is about our values of the state of California. We're going to make sure that we put this across the finish line. So for that, thank you for your leadership. And we know this is about families. We know this is about families. We have one family here today, the Clark family, that brought this issue across our nation and across our globe. So it was an unjust shooting, an unjust killing. We could never take his life back. But the Clark family was committed to make sure he didn't die in vain and to fight for this measure. So I want to recognize the family here today. Stephante Clark, brother of Stephon Clark. Sequette Clark, mother of Stephon Clark. Sequita Thompson, grandma. Curtis Gordon, uncle. Selena Mani. The children, Aiden and Cairo Clark, and Raj Mani, the grandfather. And the purpose of this bill, some would say it's about gotcha, getting officers that cross the line, that go too far. Yeah, that probably should happen when officers do cross the line on that rare occasion, because we don't see enough accountability. But more importantly, it's to save lives. It's to prevent the Clark, the Mann, the McIntyre families, the McCoy families from feeling this pain. Because if we can save lives going forward and prevent this, that's what this is all about. So thank you for being here today, and I'm pleased to be a part of this historic measure.
Good morning. I'm Darrell Steinberg, and I'm the mayor of Sacramento, and it is a high honor for me to be here with the people sitting behind me who are making history. Today will be a day to with great pride in California. Governor Newsom, Assemblymember Weber, Assemblymember McCarty, Pro Tem Tony Atkins, and Speaker Anthony Rendon, and all the legislative colleagues, and I see the Lieutenant Governor and the Attorney General here as well. You, together with an incredible advocacy community, have taken one of the most difficult, emotional, and historic divides in our country, and you have together accomplished real change. Thank you. No one law will fix all the challenges facing our law enforcement communities and our communities of color. But I am confident that AB 392 will by definition save lives. The incentives and the legal standards will discourage the kinds of confrontations that too often end in tragedy. One more is one more too many. The legal standard is fundamental. The change in legal standard is fundamental, not only to hold those who violate the law accountable, but to serve as an incentive to prevent the kinds of confrontations that end too often in death. The standard is important, but so is the urgency of more and better training for law enforcement officers. That statistic that 1/3 or more of the victims of officer-involved shootings live with a significant mental illness or mental disability, let's call this out for what it is, the ultimate stigma. It's the ultimate stigma that an individual who is suffering would have their life taken because we have not yet appropriately equipped our officers with the sensitivity and the training necessary to be able to diffuse a situation with someone and for someone who is in crisis. This law and this training will help change the culture of policing so that officers can do what attracted most of them to the profession in the first place, helping people and saving lives. You know, Assemblymember McCarty alluded to what happened in Sacramento in 2018 with the death of Stephon Clark. We suffered a great trauma in our city in 2018. And I've often asked myself, would AB 392 have prevented it? I do not know, and I'm not sure any of us can answer that question definitively. But I know the way our community, many of them who are here today, rallied after that unacceptable tragedy. We all said we would take his precious life, the loss of his life, and not forget, not just move on, and do all we could to change what must be changed. AB 392 will rightfully be seen as a watershed achievement that made real change and helped heal a wound that is always fresh. Hope is also a precious gift Today, Assemblymember Weber, legislative leadership, your colleagues, and Governor Newsom, who's never afraid to just do the right thing. Today, because of what you have done together, we are all, as Californians, more hopeful and ever committed to peace, to safety, and to justice. Thank you.
Thank you. On behalf of the California State Assembly, good morning, and thank you all for being here. You know, updating standards for use of force has not been simple. It's been a complex, technical, and emotional issue. The road to enacting AB392 has been winding and full of obstacles, but the need for us to go down that road has been quite clear. As the list of the dead grew longer and longer, their voices grew stronger and stronger. The cries of those who never got an opportunity to seek justice became deafening, and their voices and the voices of their loved ones and their neighbors overcame the protests of those who had delayed our arrival up to this point. But now we are here. We are here thanks to the work of the great Shirley Weber. We were starting to walk down that flight of stairs over here, you see on over here, and Shirley was leading the way, walking ahead of all of us, and I said, "You seem ready, Shirley," and she said, "I've been ready." We also need to thank the great Pro Tem, Tony Atkins, who's never afraid to use her juice. Thank you, Tony. We want to thank those in law enforcement who came to the table. And we always want to thank our governor, a moral leader, our governor, for his readiness to add his signature. Thank you, Governor. After the governor signs this bill today, there are still things that we need to do. We need to never forget the deaths that brought us here, and we need to keep moving down the road to justice. So thank you. Pleased to introduce the Pro Tem of the California State Senate, who worked incredibly hard to make sure that this was a priority of her caucus, the great Tony Atkins.
Well, good morning. You got to do better than that, Dr. Weber. Good morning. I know it's been a few minutes, but I do think it's important we take the time when we pass landmark legislation. I want to thank my partner, Speaker Rendon, and I'm honored to be here on behalf of my legislative colleagues, and particularly the Senate. It is a landmark day for California. I am incredibly proud to be here along with all of you and our bill's champion, Dr. Shirley Weber, Governor Newsom, Assemblymember McCarty, our Sacramento Mayor, Darrell Steinberg, and more important, community allies and families. Today, California is on the right side of history. After 147 years, the law prescribing our state's use of force statute will be reformed and end preventable deaths without jeopardizing the safety of law enforcement. This much-needed revision to our law is proof that real change can happen. It was long, hard work by my colleagues in the legislature, the victims' families, civil rights leaders, and law enforcement. Throughout this process, I have watched with great admiration as my colleague and longtime friend, Dr. Weber, addressed difficult questions and met with stakeholders to ensure that this bill accomplishes its goal, to make our communities safer for everyone. And let me tell you, when you use that word juice, you know, I preened a bit. And then I realized what you meant. You were going to hold me accountable and responsible. Thank you. Really, thank you. I love this family. This legislation is worth every bit of hard work that went into it. Every life spared will show its worth. Every mother or father who never has to receive that call will show its worth. It was worth it. This law is not a magic fix, though, for the racial tensions that are endemic in our country. But it does send a clear message that California is taking action to actively pursuing legislation to improve the safety of all of our communities, and especially our communities of color. It's a testament to California, again, setting a new standard in our nation. I'm so proud to have been part of it. I thank all who worked to see this critical legislation through to completion. I do have to acknowledge our Public Safety Chair, Nancy Skinner, members Steve Bradford and Holly Mitchell back there. And you know, we work hard, the legislators, I think you know that, but let me just acknowledge just a couple of staff members. On my staff, I see Amy Alley and Diane Griffiths, who worked very hard. And then there are the Anthonys. Dr. Weber's Anthony and our governor's Anthony. We represent constituents, but they also represent constituents, and I can't thank you enough for the hard work that you did to get us here today. So now I have the incredible honor of introducing someone who is helping lead our state in protecting and uplifting California for all, our Governor, Gavin Newsom.
I'm ready to sign this damn thing, so why don't we just cut to the chase? But I didn't fully appreciate the size of this stage, and you can't begin, as Dr. Weber did, with reciting an old African proverb about going fast but going alone versus going far without going together, without inviting some folks up to the stage for this signing. I would be remiss, for those of you I had the privilege of spending a little time with a moment ago, if you would like, I would love to have you up here for this signing. For those that were deeply influential in helping get this bill to our desk, in addition to those behind me, I would be honored if you would join us up on stage. This would not have happened without all of you, and we would not be doing justice to this moment if I didn't invite you all up. That includes, by the way, these two, the future President of the United States and the Attorney General, who would need to stand in front of this podium on both sides. To the elected officials, the Attorney General, to our Lieutenant Governor. Where'd he go? Doc. Boys go. Javier, get up here. We're going to test this stage. As everybody assembles, and I went off script. Yeah, you two are in the front. But on both sides. I need you right there. You want to stand in? Yeah, there you go. That's important. So let me just extend my gratitude to everybody up on stage. Let me extend particular gratitude, as has been stated, to Dr. Shirley Weber for her faith and devotion to the cause of justice, to her tenacity, her hard work, her determination, for recognizing good enough never is, for not giving up a year ago where she could have given up, to come back with the kind of moral force that defined the moment. I'm grateful to you, Dr. Weber, for your example. Everybody up here on stage is grateful to you. And in the spirit of some of the comments that were referenced, I think people all across the country are grateful to you, because as California goes, so goes the rest of the United States of America. And we are doing something today that stretches the boundaries of possibility. It sends a message to people all across this country that they can do more and they could do better to meet this moment in their respective states. But one thing we all know, from the Speaker to the Pro Tem to those that were assembled up here and the Mayor, is program passing is not problem solving. It's one thing to sign a piece of paper, pass legislation. It's another to change hearts and minds, to change culture, to change the way people conduct themselves, to hold themselves to a higher standard. That's the work that is in front of us. That's the work that's inside of us. That's the work that we collectively as a community need to manifest, at peril of missing this moment and missing the point of this moment. Training matters, yes. Accountability matters, certainly. Transparency, indeed. But culture, changing hearts, changing minds, changing our approach to dealing with one another. I am incredibly cognizant of that responsibility. And that lies deeply, as your governor, in the executive, but it also resides in the leadership assembled around me to hold us to account and hold us to your expectations, which I know are a big part of why you're willing to even stand with us and be on stage at this moment. And so, again, with gratitude, with appreciation, and with a deep sense of responsibility, in a hope that we can reduce the number of lives lost and we can begin to build trust and heal. I'm honored now to sign this legislation, and I'm gratified. That is mine. 392 is now law in the state of California. Dr. Weber. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thanks for being up here.
I know.
We need to move everybody off the stage before it crashes. The stage is very weak.
Stephon Clark.
Thank you, Shirley Weber. Stephon Clark. Stephon Clark.
Thank you, Gavin.
Thanks for coming out.
Your words are always on point. Always on point.
Governor, right quick.